share. So the problem here is that we're not looking at need, and that's what a lot of people are calling for, is some kind of a formula that would drive the funding more to the neediest communities in the state. I think another thing that I mentioned before that we might talk about as a community is what would make sense in terms of targeting. If we were going to try to make some additional investments in the programs, how would we target it? Would we target it at particular age groups? Would we target it at particular income slices? There's different ways to think about that. And then this notion of quality. One of the big reasons why probably many of you are here is because you're interested in those quality settings for young children. Is there a way to tie subsidies more directly and make sure that the places where we're supporting childcare are quality settings? Other states have done more in this area in terms of rating the quality levels of different childcare providers and seeing that funding sort of follows them. We do a little bit in our state and in our county in terms of providing enhanced reimbursement to accredited providers, but definitely some work and some thinking we could do about making that a little bit of a tighter link. So with that, I thank you very much for your attention. I'll turn it back over to Catherine.
Thank you, Erica, and thank her for all the work. She is the lead researcher on this. If I now can introduce our panel, Carolyn Lee Davis has been a valuable resource to all of us since the League raised this question in the spring. She's the senior policy analyst at the Children's Agenda. Her master's degree is in public policy. The last 6 years she's been at the Children's Agenda. She's led work on early childhood and education. She also is the founder of the Greater Rochester Parent Leadership Training Institute. She's a past co-chair of the Early Childhood Development Initiative. She sits on their advocacy committee. She also serves on numerous regional, state, and national groups that lobby for money for early childhood education. So Nancy, and I'm just going to ask them to come up to the table so you can see who you want to direct your questions to. Nancy Kaplan is the coordinator for Rochester's Child. When I first started doing this, there were about 20 groups and everyone had child and children in their name. So my first year's job was to get them all separated, who was with which group. 25 years she's been with Rochester Child. She's a funder that supports high-quality early education in the city of Rochester. The last 14 years she's been advocating for at-risk city children, their families to have opportunities and resources to be successful in school. She also works at the local, state, and national level. And Children's Rochester Child, I told you I get these names mixed up, sorry Nancy. Rochester Child did some wonderful work this summer, and I don't know if Nancy brought any of that material, but some really marvelous things happened this summer. We have Sarah Davis. Sarah's the mother of 4. I think she has a couple of her children with her, and a grandchild. She's a college degree. She's a certified spiritual life coach. She's a parent leader in our community. She tries to empower people to turn their hope into realities, including a better life for their children. Her comments, of course, will be from a receiver of some of these services, and she has just a few ideas about how we can provide them differently, I suspect. And Shelby Brown is a provider. Child care in our area for over 20 years. She's presently the executive director of the Community Child Care Center, which was founded over 50 years ago by Dr. Juanita Pitts, who was the first African-American female physician in Rochester. Michelle is currently a co-chair of the Early Childhood Development Initiative Advocacy Committee, and she will be responding to our report as a provider of services for our children. So, I'm first going to ask each of them to respond to this report, and then I will be glad to leave questions and answers with all the members of the audience. Carol.
Thanks very much, Kathy. Thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight.
We can't hear.
Use the microphone.
Usually we don't have them asking us to speak any louder.
Yeah, usually I'm loud enough. So thank you, Kathy, and thanks to the League for the opportunity to be here tonight and to talk about child care subsidy use in our community. So I'm going to around this, especially why the Children's Agenda spends time around the issue of child care subsidies. 85% of brain development happens before you turn 5. 90% of public funding related to learning happens after you turn 5. So that's a big challenge because brain development doesn't just happen on its own. The environment where children are and the adults that are surrounding them really matters to how well your brain develops. So when we think about where children are spending their time, if you're going to be in childcare because your parents are working, and over 70% of households in Monroe County, all parents work. So there's nobody to stay home and those kids are in childcare. That's where this early learning is happening before a kid walks in the kindergarten door. And that high quality care is really expensive. As Erica referred to, you're talking almost $13,000 a year for one child. If you're making $18,000 a year and you want to pay rent or eat food, there's no way that you can start to cover that cost, right? So that's why subsidies are incredibly important, because for a lot of these families, that's the link, and that's what creates the accessibility to this high quality care. It's the subsidy which makes that even a possibility for many of these families. When we look at, when we also think about, I just want to refer really quick, I don't know if anybody else saw this, in this summer, there was a series of reports in the New York Times that actually looked at families with professors, doctors, and lawyers that were grappling with this same issue of, can we afford to work, or does one of us have to stay home because of the high cost of care? This isn't just a low-income family problem, this is a problem that faces families across the spectrum. And as Erica also pointed out, a really big aha for me out of this report was the fact that 43% of the eligible kids are living in our towns and suburbs. And that's the area of fastest growing need. So this is a city and a county-wide problem, and it's an area where we really need to think about how we're supporting families, to think about how we're supporting children as they're learning in the first few years, and families as they're able to stay employed. The other piece I just want to speak to quickly is, and Erica referred a little bit to this too, but just to say again, the context for our community is that since 2001, we've lost about half of these slots. So we're down under 7,000 now. We used to be about 13,000. So we're on this downward trend. Last year in Monroe County, we lost another 500 of these slots. And so this is an area where we need local, state, and federal funding increases to stop that and to start to reverse that trend so more children and families are getting the support that they need.
Thank you, Carolyn. I'm here representing Rochester's Child. We're an early childhood funder, have been since 1991. We're pretty soon going to be able to talk about 25 years in the business. And Rochester's Child is a program of the Rochester Area Community Foundation. So I'm here tonight to talk about the investments that we have made as a community of funders. Certainly Rochester's Child and the Community Foundation have provided funds for quality early education and in the community, but other funders have too. In the last 5 years, Rochester's Child has invested $750,000 in high-quality improvements, maintaining high quality in our urban child care centers. There's 16 of them that we're funding right now through the Early Childhood Quality Council. So we know an accreditation is certainly an important and well-recognized rating for high quality. And through the years, we've built up other assets for quality in our community. We know that we know as funders, and we can know as the community exactly how important high quality is by the assessments that are conducted through the Rochester Early Childhood Assessment Partnership. So for 18 years, we've been tracking what children look like when they go into pre-K and when they leave pre-K, and when the first couple of, in the fall and the spring of the kindergarten year. So we have a really good view of how important quality early childhood education is for children, young children. Early childhood is a once-in-a-lifetime window of opportunity for child development. Carolyn talked about some of the things that happen. The Community Foundation has released a report on poverty and the concentrated poverty that there is in the Rochester community. And do you know that since 2012, children in the areas of concentrated poverty in our community have increased by about 6%. 55.5% of children who live in the city are living in poverty. And they're missing out on some of the highest quality education that's offered. And that can be a real buffer. It's very hard to think that parents don't have the opportunity to choose the highest quality of care that they can get for their children. It's one of those little nagging things that make you angry and sad at the same time. And as a funder, it's problematic. When there's empty slots that could be filled in the quality centers, the quality programs that we're supporting, and not all centers either, because funders have invested in improving the quality of family child care too. It's very hard to understand that we can be private funders in partnership with public funders. And it's important that we as a community prioritize investing in our children and getting our children who are struggling with poverty, giving them a chance in their families at a different life. It's something that we can't afford not to do, actually.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to speak about Subsidy, how important it is. Yes, I can speak up here. Okay. I'm going to speak on the importance of Subsidy as a parent that received Subsidy at one time. A little bit of history. My son was a victim of a homicide. My son was a victim of a homicide, and as I was working at the time, but I had lost my job and had to get on social services, and I needed a subsidy. I have an 8-year-old, and he needed child care so that I can go and get help and be who I need to be for him. I am so happy that when my application went across that desk, someone said yes. Yes, because I wouldn't be here today. I am so thankful for Subsidy. It helps families. It helped me and my son. And I'm not saying that I am just this case, it's not going to happen again to someone else. I believe. Because it benefited me, and I'm giving back to the community now. I'm fighting for women, advocating for families, because I understand, I live it, I know the importance of having your child in quality daycare. Because if I had my son in a home that wasn't quality daycare or somewhere that wasn't quality, I wouldn't be able to focus on helping me. Because if the tree is not healthy, how is the fruit going to be healthy? So I needed that subsidy. I needed them to say, yes, you can go to daycare. You can send your son to daycare so you can go get help. It is so important. People think it doesn't affect us as a whole, but it does. Because you can be going to work, and the person next to you in the cubicle could be dependent on subsidy. And if they have to leave their child at home, they're not going to give 100%. So then your workload increases. When I went to college. As I was healing and my son was in daycare, I went to college. And when I bought my first loaf of bread for $2.50, I was excited. I was excited. When I went to the rental office and paid my rent on my own, I was excited. If I did not have subsidy, I would not be able to do that. I'm giving back to the community now. So it's a circle. It is a circle, so it does affect us all as a whole. And I just want to fight for this because I understand the importance. I'm sitting here, I'm a success story. And there's 50,000 more success stories behind me.
Thank you. I am the director of Community Child Care Center. We are an accredited center. We also have a quality star rating of 4, which you have 5 stars, and we have 4. We will also go again for another star. But the reason why I feel that people need to bring their children to accredited centers are we give the foundation of learning for that formal education, I guess you could say. It's just not about babysitting anymore. I think a lot of people think that child care is babysitting, but that is not the case anymore. We are the first educators along with the parents. And that is why you need the quality because, you know, we see these rates of graduation and they're not so good. But I feel that when a child comes to my center, they're going to be successful. There's no question about it in my mind because they are surrounded by the best teachers that you could have. These women are dedicated every day to what they need to do for these children. And I am so lucky to be in a place where people give 100% every day. And everyone should have that opportunity to have quality. Just because you live in a certain place or you work a certain place does not mean that you should not be able to have that. That is not a luxury. That should be a necessity for all children to have quality care. And that's why I'm speaking the way I am. Sarah is a parent of mine. Her child did come to us when he was 2 years old. And our center has worked with her because we believe that it's not only about just the child, it's about the family. And if you can realize that, other centers and people can realize it's not just the child, it's the family. You have to work as a whole. Otherwise, the child will not succeed. You have to help the family. And that's why I feel that it is important that people take their children to quality centers. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now ready for your questions and comments, and I'm going to give the mic to Jen. And I'm not quite sure, Jen, this is going to be a little of a logistics problem. The questioner or the commenter gets the mic and then the answer. She'll do it.
Thank you. Rather than thinking about how we can get subsidies for individual children, is there a different way that we should be offering childcare? And I guess I'm looking at you, Carolyn, from the Children's Agenda. I mean, how do they do it in other countries? Should we really just be rethinking the way that we offer quality childcare instead of just talking about subsidies?
Thank you. I think it's a great question, and I think it's a question that a lot of communities are starting to grapple with here in the States. Other countries do it different ways. Other countries, some did both in terms of family leave. Parents have an opportunity to stay home for a year or two with their children with support. Then they have an opportunity to access high-quality care at no cost. It's provided in different ways. But we're also starting to see some of those conversations change here in the States, too. I'll refer, and I referred to this earlier today, Seattle, for example, Seattle City Council just passed legislation a week ago to increase their taxes. So they're making a choice to spend more on their taxes to offer universal pre-K program to both 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. So here in Rochester, we're really lucky that the majority, about 80% of our 4-year-olds, go to a high-quality universal pre-kindergarten program at no cost to them. So if you live in Rochester and you're 4, you get to sign up and go. And this is what Nancy was referring to in terms of being really high quality. It's assessed every year. We have a sense of those child outcomes, and they're really great outcomes. So I do think that there's a conversation to be had around how we can expand the universality of these approaches to more children, because the subsidy system was initially created and is still primarily seen as a work support first. So it's tied to the employment of the parent. So especially here in Monroe County, if you lose your job, you have a 2-week grace period to find a new job. That doesn't happen usually. It takes a little longer. And so then your child is leaving that high-quality setting that they were in, and that lack of continuity hurts the child and the parent. Not only does it make it harder to find a job, but then your child is missing out on that high-quality setting that they were getting to go to and missing out on that learning and development. So I do think that we need to start bringing into the conversation additional ways of thinking about how we serve more of our children with a universal high-quality approach that isn't tied to employment as a complement to the subsidy system. Anybody else wants to?
The thousands of children who are not getting subsidy for their daycare today, how are those families coping? Or anybody who has an answer.
I've been asked that question today 3 times. And I don't think we know. And I don't know how the person who asked me, I had the longest conversation with, we tried to figure out how we might get to that. You know, we can guess.